So I grew up in a pretty good home. You know, when we were little, my dad paid a lot of attention to us, take us to Dodger games. Everything was cool. It was just fun. But my mom ended up getting sick. In fact, when my mom was younger, she was around 18 years old. She got in a car accident. She hit her head, and she had this what was called a chemical imbalance. You know, it affected her brain somehow, and through the years, it only progressed. But I remember at the age of, I would say, I don't remember, but I was like 6 years old. My mom got demon possessed. Oh, you know, yeah, and at first we didn't understand what it was. I remember, and it's crazy because I still I have like this memory where I remember seeing her a certain way, and it wasn't until the interview, my last interview, where I started like really thinking, saying, you know what, I'm gonna ask some questions. So I began to ask my uncles, hey man, you know, I had this memory of my mom being demon possessed, and this is what I remember. Can you clarify it? And all my uncles like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. In fact, let me share more. And so they kind of like built my memory, or opened up these doors where I can, you know, I got some answers. But
how did it look like for her to be demon obsessed?
There's a movie called the Exorcism of Emily Rose. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
An old one.
And there's this one movie, there's one part in the movie where she's actually twisted on the ground. Like, you know, she's on the floor all twisted. So I remember when we were little, me and my brothers, we went in, and my mom was, it was weird. Her body was twisted. Her jaw was to the side. She was making all these weird noises, and it was freaking us out because we were like, Mom. And she was like, yeah.
That's for real.
Yeah, it really happened. So I remember my grandma, her best way of explaining to us her situation without telling us that she was possessed was that because she ate late at night, that's what happens when you eat late. So in our minds, we were afflicted with this lie that if we eat at past 12 o'clock, we're gonna get twisted. But that was my way of my grandma.
Don't eat at night.
Yeah, don't eat at night. Now that I found out it's true, I started eating at night, and I look, I get up all this weight. So that was. But I remember that during that time, my mom would curse, and it was weird because my mom is Spanish. She's a Hispanic. She only speaks Spanish, not English. So when she would say words in English, we're like, well, what? And like, what's that? You know, and we were little, so it was confusing. But then I remember some religious, I think it was a priest that walked in, and I remember the priest pretty much trying to cast the demon out, and we were all there, and somehow I think the demon jumped out, and we were running outside because it was kind of scary. So we ran outside, me and my brothers, and the priest shut the door and told us, don't go outside, keep those doors closed. We gotta cast this demon out, something like that. Again, it's blurry a little bit, but I remember afterwards. So the demon, supposedly what happened is that the demon went from my mom to my aunt, and then my aunt got possessed. And she literally stood on the table, and she was looking up, of course, with her eyes. It was weird. I know it sounds kind of movie-ish, but it happened, you know. And I remember she was just standing like that, and she was claiming to be the Virgin Mary. So she was accepting like this worship. And I remember I told my uncle, hey, did she live from the ground, you know? Because I remember like she was on the, what do you call it? Elevated? No, what's the word?
Levitating.
So I was like, did she levitate, you know? And so, but I never said anything because I was like, nah, it's my imagination, until my uncles, you know, a few months ago we were talking, when he said that, I was like, oh man, I knew I saw that she was, you know, up in the air there. And so after that, it was like my mom's sickness just got worse, you know. She started like she was later on diagnosed like a 3-stage, I think it's called, she had a chemical imbalance, a 3-stage something, kind of like with schizophrenia type of thing. And so from that point on, my mom, in her sickness, tried to raise 3 boys. So it's me, it was my brother Johnny, who's my oldest brother, and my 2 other brothers, my other brother Angel, who's my twin brother. I'm a twin. So she was trying to raise us up, but because my dad was absent, we got we took in the full blow of her sickness, where my mom would do things and say things that was not normal, you know. And what do I mean by that? For instance, my mom would when she wanted to get our attention, she would bodily harm herself. You know, she would do things like, I remember once she was standing over the stove and she called to us and we looked at her. Me and my brother are looking at her and she kind of looks at us and smiles and just drops her head on the stove while the fire was on, and her hair just caught on fire, and we're like, Mom, what are you doing? You know, like little things like that.
Is that for real?
Yeah, I'm being honest. You know, there were times where we would walk into the restroom and my mom was on the floor and we would catch her with like she would drink pills to try to kill herself. You know, so we caught her like that, and we would call my dad, and my dad would come. So there's a lot of things that we were exposed to at a very early age.
And how old were you at the moment?
We were about six years old, around that age.